Hello, Josh from Guitars of Pikesville here. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about lessons at Guitars of Pikesville. By the way, this is a Larrivee LV05. It's a cutaway with a nice pickup system on it. Lessons at Guitars of Pikesville consist of me giving lessons, and sometimes my son helps me with beginners. And I consider myself to be an intermediate guitar player, so I teach mostly beginners, and I teach beginning intermediate players. I have a long list of people who I can refer out to, and often do. They each have their area of expertise, and it's good for a teacher to be able to do that, to refer out to other teachers. There are many reasons why, some of which don't have anything to do with lessons, but have to do more with scheduling and special needs. I see three areas that we can teach in. Technique, which is basically how you approach the guitar, the motor mechanics of how you play. The second area would be theory, fretboard theory, and I call it the game board, how the game board works. The third area is what you play, repertoire. And of course, they all come together to make a lesson plan. A lot of people say, why should I get lessons? I have all these YouTubes and online material. And probably technique is the best answer for that. Technique is the most compelling reason why an interactive lesson with a live human being works. And the reason is because I can actually manipulate a person's hand. I can show them. I can give them feedback on what they're doing. But technique is also the most contentious thing to try and teach because everybody has a different way of playing depending on what they're trying to play. Every type of music has its own attack and has its own method. There are a few things I think hold true that most people would agree about technique. Although I say that anything that I say to do or not to do, there's a great player that does the exact opposite. But basically, you want your hands to be relaxed, which means no tensing up of the muscles. And I try to avoid having the student grip the neck in any way. What I want is really the ability to play from your fingers rather than with the muscle of the hand. There are times when you will dig into the neck a little bit, but in general, I want them to learn to come from the top and play down to the fretboard so that they don't mute out strings when they're trying to play chords with open strings. On the right hand, I don't believe in anchoring. I know a lot of great players do it, but I think with a healthy hand, the natural momentum of the fingers can really get you to where you're going. And with all these new techniques of slap harmonics and two-hand tapping, I think you need to have your hand be mobile and to be able to get around. Having said that, there are certain great players that do anchor, and sometimes having something that limits your playing is actually a plus for certain styles, I guess. But you can see why it's a difficult thing to teach. Sometimes when I have a new student or a student who can't get to the guitar as much as they want, I encourage them to use one of these Pro Hand devices by Gripmaster. Lets you exercise the individual fingers. And usually I recommend the light. This is the medium. This is good for athletes and people who have very strong hands. But it's a nice little product that sometimes helps a little bit. For theory, that is something where you need to make the connections yourself in your own mind. And one book I find is excellent for that by Mike Christensen from Mel Bay is the Fingerboard Theory for the Guitar. This is the most concise, most well thought out method that I've come about for theory. And you can use this for any type of music. I encourage all of my teachers and students to utilize that book. I haven't seen one quite as good as that. And finally, it's the repertoire, the pieces that really get you to developing ways of practicing. For example, a student learning a piece, I encourage them for example, with chord progressions, to practice the hands individually, to first do the changes just by touching the strings, and then after touching the strings, they can press down and do the change, to really think about common fingers between the chords and about the crossing of fingers and the best method to get from chord to chord. Methods of practicing, sometimes when we're learning a new piece, I will, for example, on that alternating bass, I'll have them circle off the bass and then get that down, then circle off the melody and play the melody, and then draw a circle where the notes come together so they can get the syncopations. Sing the melody while you play the bass, sing the bass while you play the melody, and then slowly bring it together. That's just one example of little techniques we have to get people playing the pieces that they want to play. We could talk about lessons all day, but I invite you to drop me your own comments. I originally had hoped to get another teacher here that I refer to quite often, and would consider this the better type of thing to do in a discussion. Unfortunately, couldn't make it, but you're welcome to drop your comments, and I look forward to seeing you soon at Guitars of Pikesville.